I wasn't really thinking that this guy was going to shoot me after a while, but it's not the issue that I want to fight. I could have proposed legislation if that was something that was really important to me, and just like they did in D.C. Well, we're going to ban handguns. Why? I don't believe it's the thing, and I don't believe it's a solution to crime. A good economy, jobs, hope. Those are things that are responses to crime. You know, there's a couple teachers here, at least our host and my sister, and who else is a teacher? An educator in here. You know, we don't talk a lot about education, and we don't talk a lot about, it's not a big stump issue. But if kids who are going to school don't see hope at the end, they will fall out and do things that are much more costly in the long run. I have a nephew who is a kid who absolutely hates school. And fortunately, a week ago Monday, he graduated from high school. And now but the reason he graduated is because there was a teacher who was able to be creative, who was able to latch onto him in some way and say, this is how you can be successful. This is how you can graduate. This is how you can find a job, a career. And something switched in my nephew because a teacher was allowed to be creative. A teacher was allowed to do his job and say, I can make a connection with this child. Fortunately, it worked. But not every teacher gets that opportunity. And I know that Liz and Kathleen, they have to deal with a lot that goes on in the public school system that frustrates them to no end. And they're not allowed to be as creative as they want to be because there's a big federal mandate that addresses how we teach our children. I know that the better teachers are the more creative ones. And that is the telltale sign that I have talked long enough. All right, it's time to budget. Yes?
The undocumented workers is huge. Your thoughts about healing?
Undocumented workers are a huge issue, and immigration is an issue that probably will be addressed in a mean-spirited sort of way once the election begins in earnest. First of all, I think we have to have a very good process and a reasonable way to make sure that people follow that process. I think employers have to have a quick and effective and correct way to verify the ability of someone to be hired, because if you hire them and then a month later, that's no good. Then they just go underground again. We have to be more creative because part of our economy does rely on it. And if you start to think about one of the phrases that you hear, we have to wrap up these 12 million people or however many it is and send them back to their own country. Well, the truth is, it's probably not 12 million, probably closer to 20 million. And think of how much it will cost each of us to round up 20 million people who are, the vast majority of them, contributing to our economy in some way. And I think that is a concept pretty much full of hate and lacks logic. Because I've gone to McDonald's, I've seen people with W bumper stickers in McDonald's, and I see the people who are working in McDonald's, and they're supporting that business, and I'm supporting that business. But I bet you that not all those people are documented workers. I also think that the condition in which we find ourselves is actually hurting existing employees. Use my business as an example. I don't have any undocumented workers. Most of the kids who work for me were born in Frederick County, and I think I'm probably one of those people that they'll keep an eye on. But I also am lucky enough to have a group of people who are good and they stay a while. But my guys are at a competitive disadvantage because I pay a higher rate. They can't go anywhere that pays that much, so I sort of have them. But the other companies are paying less, so I'm at a competitive disadvantage. Somehow we have to figure it out so it is a more level playing field. One of the opportunities that we're going to have is to figure out a way, and it might be through a payroll tax deduction where the employer and the worker get sponsored and then have an additional line for them to pay to become citizens, to work their way into a system. Because there's no really good way to say, oh, I'd like your check for $10,000, please, for you to become a citizen. Because, who has that around? A good way is to figure out a sensible way that we can track people and get them out of the shadows. Now, if you're here illegally and you're arrested for a violent crime, and underline that, a violent crime, I want you to be deported quickly. I do not want to have to deal with that as part of our judicial system as long as there's a good process and as long as our police have clear guidelines. Right now, I don't think anybody's seeing as reasonable the idea that you're not wearing your seatbelt today? Okay, can you prove you're a citizen? Because I'm not sure today I could prove I'm a citizen, driving down the street. And I have to say that I think we have to be a little more reasonable about this. I think Frederick County might be a few months behind Prince William County in Virginia. They've already scaled back their heavy enforcement because it's breaking the bank. A policy shouldn't be built on hate.
There's nothing more despicable than somebody's going to break into my country and do work that most of us don't want to do.
Exactly. George, you said it very well. You say it very well.
I work with those people every day, and I run my business, and we go through the I-9 process. And if anybody asks me, can you assure me that each and every one of your employees is a legitimate worker here in the country, my answer is flatly no. But I'm also going to tell you I'm not interested in being part of the National Gestapo either. And I suppose I'm going to be hitting you in the heart with this one, but it comes from my legacy too, and that is I count these folks as being the new Irish. And I have to give this warning. I saw what we did in my industry to black Americans. They were last hired, first fired, always screwed. So when we turned and we said, hey, we need the next generation of workers, their sons and daughters said, heck no. I can make more money dealing drugs, and I am not going to be used that way. You might use my parents, but you're not going to use me. These folks we're starting to see that same trend now. And I just find it utterly amazing when I hear folks say, and then they want to be so certain about saying, no, I only want to comply with, I just think that we should comply with the law, okay? I think we all do.
Yeah.
But it's you have to be realistic, and I think that you have to be fair to them. And I just left coaching some Hispanic kids who maybe their parents aren't here legally. Do we send them who lived here all their life back to El Salvador? It's a bizarre argument, and I understand it's an entangled one.
It is.
But I would tell you from construction, you want one solution, and that would be on publicly funded projects. Establish a sensible and true prevailing wage, one that is what is prevailing in that area, not one that was established simply by a union agreement and so forth that's skewed, but one that's truly what's in that area. And that way, people like me don't have to compete with people who go down and pick up workers at the 7-Eleven and don't pay any benefits.
That's a great point. And that is the competitive disadvantage for the guy who wants to play by the rules.
And it creates a sense of friction between those who are born here and those who come here. Although I will tell you this, most people who are working people, I say this in construction, I suspect the same way, we've come to just count those people as ones that we respect and if anything, admire. Because we did have that sense of respect in the beginning, but their work ethic, their family standards, the rest of it is something to be admired. And going back to my background, I count them as being the new Irish. And I would say, let's be darn sure, and